Hey patrons, I hope you enjoyed this process video where I'm going to take you through all the stages from a line drawing to the finished piece. So after putting the painting into Procreate, I come in with black and white to establish the lights and the darks in the composition. And this is really going to affect the way that the drawing works. I wanted, a vast ocean and this really heavy like tanker barge. So I chose darker colors for those, but I also wanted a feeling of lightness, so trying to make the sky a little brighter, and then the plants on the farming barge are going to be lighter as well. And after establishing what we would call like the local value, I come in with a more soft gradient on each of the shapes. So every bush, every wave, every metal plate, I put just a little bit of what's called ambient light, just something to give a little bit of shading. So then here I color picked from photographs, different photographs, to get my local colors for, like the color of the boat, the color of the vegetation, the metal raised beds for the farms. Color picking from photographs like that is a fun way to just get some colors down on the canvas. After getting all the local colors, I bring it into Photoshop, and this starts a series of adjustment layers. And these adjustment layers are basically filters, really bright colored filters. You can see here I'm messing around with different types of light. And this style of painting is a very digital style. So what you do is you put on these filters and then you hide them, but then you paint them back in. It's almost like if any of you have ever done those scratch boards where there's like a black piece of paper and you scratch into it and there's a rainbow underneath or different colors underneath. It's kind of what I'm doing with these adjustment layers. These red lines here are just to map out the direction of the light as I start to light the scene. Here I'm painting a little blue into the clouds. So anywhere that I'm painting a lighter or darker color, I'm using these adjustment layers. And the idea is that the kind of ambient overcast version of the painting underneath helps support all of these colors. So when I go to paint the light on the clouds or the light on the water, it just, there's going to be a color harmony. Making the ocean a bit deeper blue. Sometimes I'm painting, sometimes I'm using the gradient tool to create a soft transition. So on the horizon, I'm adding a little bit of yellow. The sun is, to the left of the boat from the boat's perspective. So some of these waves down below are not going to get any direct sunlight because they're hidden by the boat. This process is a bit kind of labor intensive with building all of these adjustment layers, hiding them, and then painting them, like allowing certain parts of that layer to show through. But what's cool about it is that I can go back and kind of tweak any of the colors. So the main adjustment layer I'm using is the, I believe it's called color balance. So the color balance is allowing me to, make something more yellow or make something more blue just by using sliders. Now I'm getting into more of a detail phase where I'm selecting a shape, say like the metal planking there, and then I'm hatching with just a regular brush, just hatching light onto there, and that light is created from the adjustment layer. You can see a lot of the layers on the right have like a black box like a black box next to them, and that's just hiding the filter. And so when I paint white on that box, it allows the filter to shine through. And since all my shapes are separated, I can select any particular piece, whether it's the dark metal grating, the light metal planking, the blue metal of the ship, even the rust and some of the textures I have all separated on different layers. So when I go to paint on the filter, it's keeping to just the area that I want it to. So you can see the selection going on and off as I'm moving from one element to the next. Working on the dirt, selecting, like lighter, darker versions. I wanted this piece to have a little bit of realism to the color, but I also wanted it to have kind of a stylized feeling too. I think the stylized feel gives it kind of a fanciful quality. So each element is going to get a light side and a dark side. And doing this in Photoshop is the easiest way. Procreate just can't handle the size and the layers that I needed, so pulled it into Photoshop. So here I'm painting in the shadows on the foliage. Adding some lights. Here I'm going to the people. Now the people on the boat were actually inspired by a darker side of Parable of the Sower. In the story, there's a sort of compound called Olivar, and this is a place where desperate people go for stable work, but it turns out when you go there, it's basically indentured servitude. So instead of being homeless, you're an indentured servant. So this boat, as I'm painting it, I'm like not quite sure if it's a utopia or actually quite a hardship to be out here on the open seas, perhaps trapped, on this boat. A little bit of the darker side of kind of a cli-fi story. But I did want the colors to feel pretty cheery. And so I'm taking some time to lighten up the sky, cast some more light on the ocean. And coming in with, some final passes on all of the colors, kind of weaving them together. And then what I'll start doing here in a second is doing a lot of adjustment layers. So I'll take all of my filters, put them in one folder, and then I'll make new folders on top where I painted a little atmospheric haze. I'm going to start adding a few gradients on top of everything to just unify the light. And because all my layers are separated, I can go back and tweak. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm just making little final adjustments. And so I hope you enjoyed the process for this painting.